Calling to order the special meeting for Diamond Lake School District 76. Roll call, please.
Here. Ms. Bailiff. Here. Ms. Gale.
Here.
Mr. Halpin. Mr. Costello. On. Yes. Here. Ms. Sullivan. Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we now open the floor for public comments on agenda items. Since there is no one present in the room with us, I'm assuming that all the public comments will be virtual. If you have a public comment this evening, please feel free to type that into the chat box and we will read it into the meeting for you. And we will pause for a minute to allow you to have time to do so. There's a comment, right? Do you want to read that, Eric? Sure.
My wife and I strongly support the recommendation to go mask optional starting February 28th.
That comment is from Boris Weidman. I apologize if I'm butchering your name. Okay, do we have any further public comment this evening? Okay, then we will move on to our presentation. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm going in between two screens real quick. All right, thank you. Tonight's presentation is for D76 Mass Recommendation Plan, and the district leadership team worked on this, has been working on this for the past few weeks, but we've updated it with the most latest litigation updates that became available last Friday. I've asked Ms. Carrera to translate each slide for us, since we are recommending a change to our current plan for mitigations for all of our students and staff.
La presentación de hoy será una actualización del plan de máscaras recomendadas. El equipo de liderazgo ha estado trabajando en actualizar esto desde las últimas actualizaciones.
So throughout the pandemic, we have focused on priorities, district priorities that remained consistent for the past 2 years. Number one, making sure that children have access to all needed resources, teaching, learning, as well as food and technology resources. Priority number two, account for the extended safety, health, and welfare of all of our students and staff. Priority three, which has changed a little bit in the past year when we went from in-person to remote, and now possibly changing some mitigation, adapt and respond to the environmental changes and legal updates with the least amount of disruption to learning. And then what's been a priority throughout the whole process, as well as one of our district goals and priorities, is to communicate clearly.
Nuestras prioridades del distrito, la primera prioridad es asegurar que todos los estudiantes tienen acceso a recursos necesitados, estos para apoyar la enseñanza y aprendizaje, y también tecnología con las necesidades de todos nuestros estudiantes. La segunda prioridad es dar cuenta de la seguridad, la salud y el bienestar de todos nuestros estudiantes y el personal. La tercera prioridad es adaptarse y responder a los cambios ambientales y las actualizaciones legales con la menor cantidad de interrupciones en el aprendizaje. Y la cuarta prioridad es comunicar claramente.
So in the past months, there's been some legislations that have been under review, and last week, 2 updates came to us that impact our schools. The first one that came on February 15th, 2020, where the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules, the JCAR Committee, voted not to renew emergency rules enacted by the Illinois Department of Public Health on September 17th, 2021, when they were first initiated. Those rules allowed school districts to exclude students identified as a close contact, and that expired on February 14th, 2022. On February 17th, 2022, the Fourth Appellate Court of Illinois dismissed Governor Pritzker's appeal of an earlier circuit court temporary restraining order. The appellate court ruling effectively means that state is restrained from enforcing COVID-related emergency rules, including those related to masking in schools.
De la legislación actual, el 15 de febrero, el Comité Conjunto de Reglas Administrativas votó a favor de no renovar las reglas de emergencia promulgadas por las reglas de emergencia del Departamento de Salud Pública de Illinois, que pasó el 17 de septiembre. Esas reglas permitieron a los distritos escolares excluir a los estudiantes identificados como un contacto cercano y se expiraron el 14 de febrero. El 17 de febrero, la Corte de Apelaciones del Cuarto Distrito de Illinois despidió la apelación del gobernador Pritzker de una orden de restricción temporal anterior de la Corte del Circuito. La decisión de la Corte significa efectivamente que el Estado no puede hacer cumplir las reglas de emergencia relacionadas con COVID, incluidas las relaciones con el uso de máscaras en las escuelas.
So based on these updates and changes that have happened last week, District 76 is putting together a rationale for a mask recommended plan. Here are our reasons and our rationale for why to do this. So the Illinois indoor mask mandate ends on February 28th, 2022, which is next Monday. Multiple layered mitigation strategies at school. We're going to continue to keep those in place. Rates of infection, not only in our school, but throughout our local area, are dropping. Testing is available not only at school, but in the community and in homes. Hospitalization capacity has improved locally, as well as Mundelein High School, Stevenson High School, and all the feeder elementary districts are following mask optional or mask recommended plans. After following up with our insurance provider, Click, they have advised us that all plans should be based on facts and data, which what we're basing them on in order to maintain the best protection and our tort immunities.
La lógica para el plan de máscaras recomendadas en el Distrito 76, el mandato de uso de máscaras en áreas interiores de Illinois termina el 28 de febrero. Las estrategias de mitigación de múltiples niveles en las escuelas continúan para nosotros. Las tasas de infección están disminuyéndose. Pruebas están disponibles en las escuelas, la comunidad y en el hogar. La capacidad de hospitalización ha mejorado. Mundelein High School y Stevenson High School y todos los distritos cercanos están siguiendo los planes opcionales de mascarillas. Y también hemos hablado con nuestra compañía de aseguranza y las consideraciones de ellos. Los planes deben basarse en hechos y datos, que es lo que estamos haciendo para mantener la mejor protección y inmunidades tort.
So some of the data that we put together based on some of the board members' requests is our COVID cases from the beginning of the year. And as you can see, they went slightly higher as the year went on, and especially in January when the Omicron variant was present. But they have also sharply declined in the past month. And also in the past 2 weeks, we haven't seen any cases. Our vaccination status is 98% of our staff members are vaccinated. And from our students, after following up with our nurses, 20% of our students are vaccinated, but that also just means that those are what we have reported. So that could be more than that.
Los datos del Distrito 76 de casos y vacunaciones de COVID, aquí puede ver basado en los últimos meses. En enero miramos más aumento por el variante Omicron que pasó y el estado de vacunación de todo nuestro personal actualizado es 98% de nuestro personal están vacunados y de nuestros estudiantes es 20% de lo que es reportado después de hablar con nuestras enfermeras de cada edificio. Y de nuevo puede ser más, pero esos son los que tenemos reportados ahorita.
So even though the district is recommending going to mask, strongly recommended, there are still areas required by the federal law for mandatory masking. That's on all of our transportation, public transportation, activities outside of school hours. For example, our extracurricular activities, sports-based, it will depend on our host schools. But as I shared with you, all of our feeder schools that are in our conference are going mask optional or mask recommended. Any student who is a positive COVID-19 case may return after 5 days in isolation if asymptomatic. However, they will be required to mask for 6 to 10 days.
El requerido
I'm sorry, for days 6 to 10. I apologize. I don't want to, for days 6 to 10.
El requerido mandatorio de máscaras, todavía vamos a seguir con la transportación, es una regla federal. Las actividades fuera del horario escolar, actividades extracurriculares basadas en deportes en la escuela anfitriona, pero como les habíamos dicho, los distritos cercanos están siguiendo las mismas guías que nosotros. Cualquier estudiante que sea un caso positivo de COVID-19 puede regresar después de 5 días en aislamiento si no es asintomático. Sin embargo, se le requerirá usar una máscara de los días de 6 a 10.
So if the board takes action and approves our recommended masking proposal, there may be some metrics and other consideration that would require us to go back to masking required. And that would be just our local transmission level. So after, consulting with what Lake County Department of Public Health recommends, we will still continue to monitor cases, number of COVID cases in each building per week, as we have been since the beginning. We'll stay unmasked if less than 5% of the population is positive in separate areas of the building. But we may have to go back to mask required if greater than 5% of our population is positive. So, and if we look, 5% at Diamond Lake is 15 students, 5% at West Oak Intermediate School is 13 students, and 5% at West Oak Middle School is 15. Some other considerations that we would look at is, again, rising students and staff cases above 5% going to masking, outbreaks within a specific school or classroom, if we have staff shortages due to COVID-19, and or if there are any updates in court orders, state mandates, or laws.
Y aquí puede ver las métricas y otras consideraciones para a lo mejor que tengamos que requerir las máscaras de nuevo. Y esto es si los niveles de transmisión locales, vamos a estar viendo el número de casos en un edificio por semana. No vamos a usar máscaras si es menos de 5% de la población da positivo en áreas separadas del edificio. Si es más de 5%, regresáramos a usar las máscaras. La duración de tiempo de enmascaramiento hasta por debajo del umbral. Y de nuevo, esto sería un requerimiento si el aumento de casos de estudiantes y el personal es más de 5%, brotes dentro de la escuela o en la clase, si hay falta de personal o si hay una orden judicial, un mandato estatal o si hay un cambio en la ley.
So once the board makes a decision tonight, we've put together a communication timeline that district communication will go out to all staff and families tomorrow, letting them know of the changes as well as when that will start. Principals will meet with each staff member and grade level team meetings Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday in each of the buildings. We will also have student assemblies and classroom discussions for the rest of the week. That'll be age appropriate, and varying from Diamond Lake all the way to the West Oak Middle School. And then we will continue to keep dialogue and discussions open with the teachers union as we have been throughout the process.
Y de parte de la cronología de comunicación, mañana el 23 de febrero habría comunicación del distrito a todas nuestras familias y al personal. Para el miércoles, jueves y viernes, 23 hasta el 25 25 de febrero habrían reuniones del personal y equipos de nivel de grado. También los estudiantes estarán, vamos a estar comunicando con los estudiantes vamos a tener conversaciones apropiadas con cada nivel de estudiantes en las clases, también del 23 hasta el 25 de febrero, y seguiremos discusiones con la Unión de Maestros y Maestras.
So the district leadership team would like to recommend the board take action tonight on the mask recommended. Strongly encourage and recommended universal masking, but do not require masking starting next Monday, February 28th. Strongly encourage and recommend weekly testing for unvaccinated staff, but do not require weekly testing as we currently do. Strongly encourage parents to continue to share vaccination status of students with school nurses. Maintain contact tracing for close contacts in a school setting. However, we cannot exclude students or staff who are asymptomatic. And then maintain our district's 76 COVID-19 dashboards and metrics as we have throughout the process.
Las recomendaciones del equipo de liderazgo del distrito que le estamos pidiendo a la mesa directiva hoy es animar fuertemente y recomendar el enmascaramiento universal, pero no requerirlo a partir del lunes 28 de febrero. Animar fuertemente y recomendar pruebas semanales para el personal que no son vacunados, pero no exige pruebas semanales. Animar fuertemente a los padres continuar compartiendo el estado de vacunación para todos los estudiantes con las enfermeras de las escuelas, mantener el rastreo de contacto para los contactos cercanos en un entorno escolar. Sin embargo, no podemos excluir a los estudiantes y al personal que no son asintomáticos, y mantener el panel de métricas de COVID-19 actualizadas en nuestro sitio web.
So if there's any questions or feedback from the board.
You look like you have a question.
She looks like she has a notebook.
She said you look like you have a notebook.
I do. I've been looking things up. So I guess my first question, I have two questions. My first question is that following the 5 days of quarantine, if you are symptomatic and positive, and then day 6 through 10, you could return if you were masked. Is there any provision for somebody a student who might be remote for those first 5 days, and then day 6 through 10, would they be required to return with a mask, or could they finish out their 10 days staying remote, in case we had somebody who didn't want to adhere to the mask requirement for them to return while they were still technically in the quarantine period?
I'm sure. I think that's what we do now. So I think that would be no problem to continue that.
Okay, that was the second one. I read a lot of things that have been shared in various other communities, and how I guess this is more how the teachers feel about choices that families are making. Are we opting, if we opt to go mask highly recommended, would it no longer be the teacher responsibility to make sure that a student is masking if the student chooses not to mask? I hope that is making sense. Like what a family chooses to do moving forward would be up to that individual child when they are here, and not being placed onto the teacher. I didn't know if there had been any discussion about that or anything.
I think we'll probably look at that especially differently at the younger grades. If students aren't able to make those choices, I think, we'll follow up. We're small enough that we can follow up with those families individually.
Okay.
And I think teachers have those relationships with those families to be able to say, okay, I'm noticing this. Is this really, what you want and what you're recommending? And I think we'll know that in the first couple of days, which students come with or without masks.
Okay.
No other question? For the mandatory masking, during that quarantine period that Elisa was just talking about, does that go beyond students? Would that apply to anyone in the building?
Yes,
Okay,
I think we have to.
that's my understanding.
Yeah.
I just want clarification because the presentation is only discussing students. And then with the 5% rate, the positivity rate in the building, are staff included in those? I mean, based on the numbers that you're giving us, staff are not included, but should they be included?
Which numbers are you talking about? Because the staff are included in the numbers in the chart.
If there's 5% positive at,
Oh, I see what you're saying, that
yeah.
the
which would be-
students that we gave you, the number
Yeah,
for
that's
students.
only 15. I mean, it's 15, so that would be 15 students because you have 300 students. But if you had an outbreak amongst the staff, does that impact?
I think we would include staff and student numbers.
Okay.
I think we should.
Does anyone else have questions?
I do have a question related to that. Do we have data right now telling us what our percentage positivity rate has been from the last? So that, like where the numbers are trending?
I think we supplied that. I think it was 0. We didn't have any cases the past 2 weeks.
But just to be clear, that number indicates that a student or a staff member that's positive on the
No,
property.
when they reported to us.
Okay. So even if I went home and tested positive and I called it.
And we put that in. Right. And then we contact trace.
So in those numbers, because I think I didn't understand the way those numbers were communicated either. So in the numbers for December, for example, does that not include any cases over winter break? Because presumably they wouldn't have been reported to us unless it would impact the kids coming back to school. Or staff coming back to school.
That's correct. Unless it impacts our district operations, they tested positive over winter break and we're not in the building during the period of infectious transmission time. We were not.
Okay.
So does that mean when a child reports, when a parent reports a child sick from school, or the front desk administrators, are they asking those parents specifically whether this is a COVID positive case?
Right in front of the principal, I believe that's part of the daily interaction between the nurse, the front office, and the parent itself.
Because I guess I'm asking because for the past several months, we've had a policy where we can family, the child is symptomatic, whether it's COVID positive or not, they should stay home, right? Whether it's verified or rapid. Whether it's COVID.
And you are asking, I mean, I've heard it, that what you're asking, if they're symptomatic, what are their symptoms?
I've never been asked.
You should be. I mean, I've heard it. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. I was just having this.
We don't necessarily ask. Doing okay, whatever. 99.9% of the time, the parent or volunteer.
Sure.
We're not asking. Our thing is very good. Communicating whether or not symptomatic or if they're going to have a test.
That's helpful. I think we're just trying to get an idea of how accurate the data is, because obviously we're just relying on whether or not people tell us, just the same with the vaccination rate. We're relying on whether people inform us or not. And so, it's difficult to make sure that the data that we're looking at is, I mean, I don't think we're questioning any of the methodologies used by the district. I think we're just at the mercy of everyone disclosing that information. So.
The metric related to vaccination status, I know staff doing that, staff report their vaccination status, but not necessarily for students. So this is a response, this figure are responses from parents that voluntarily
Mhm.
disclose their actual vaccinated status, right? of students.
Correct. I'm just getting a comment that it's hard to hear some of the questions that the board members are asking. So if you are asking a question, if you can either speak right into the microphone or you can pull your mask down.
Sure. Does anyone have more questions? We can also move on to board to like more of a discussion format as well.
I just have a quick question. For like, can you guys talk about the student assemblies and classroom discussions and kind of what that's going to entail? I know that a lot of districts have been had concerns about, bullying or whatever. And is that kind of the motivation behind those discussions
Go
in the
ahead, Kelly.
classroom?
Peterson and I actually have been working on this with part of the SEL committee and looking at how Castle is doing different recommendations. So it'd be more about acceptance and that we have different choices, and whatever the choice is, we still respect others and accept others for what the choice is. And so our plan would be to work with our social workers to review a slideshow and then actually have that be part of the morning meetings and have that be part to help that transition for the students.
Okay, do we have any more questions?
In looking at the metrics and in thinking about when a situation might arise that we would need to go back to masking, it says outbreaks within school or classroom. Would that then mean that obviously an outbreak within the school is pretty, self-explanatory, but within a classroom, would that mean that we would go over the threshold of the 5% or just if we had a cluster situation in one classroom, would that then impact the entire building or would that be contained within that classroom? I hope I'm making myself
If I
clear.
understand your question, if it happened in a classroom and it was under the 5%, we would probably just work with that classroom.
That was my question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any more questions? Okay, then we can move on to board discussion if anyone wants further discussion on the issue. Since I don't think we've really had discussion at the at open session prior to this. I just wanted to thank the leadership team for putting this together. I know that it's something that you've been working on continually, but I know that we also asked you to wrap it up a little bit sooner than you had been planning. So I think we appreciate the information that was provided. And I think it's helpful. I mean, so far as a district or as a board, we've only really had feedback from 4 families, public comment and then email. And so considering that we have probably 700 families in the district, it's hard for us to get a full picture of exactly how every family feels. I think we can get a sense based on what other surrounding districts have done and what we've seen in the news that, COVID has moved to become more of a tolerable risk and that people are willing to take that risk to potentially catch COVID if they don't want to, wish to mask or follow certain mitigation procedures anymore, and balance those risks against other risks that they, wish to take. So, I think this data has been really helpful. If we can see that the cases in our district are lower than maybe the county, I think is still at, last week, I think was at a 5% positivity rate for our zip code and then has dropped to, I think I looked it up and it was 2.75. So we can see it's decreasing. There's still a high incidence of transmission because there's over 100 cases. on a 7-day basis. So I think our school has been fortunate in that it seems like from the reported cases and the data that we have, there's a lower number of cases currently. We certainly have seen a decline since January. And I think that this information is helpful. It's helpful for us to see, kind of the various metrics, to understand the mitigation strategies that will continue to be in place, and to kind of understand where our risk lies as a district. So does anyone have any further discussion, comments, questions? Or would you like to move on to take action? Well, I'm gonna take silence as acceptance that you would like to move on. Okay, and so we will move on to the resolution and the action item for this evening. Be it resolved, the Diamond Lake 76 District Board of Education accepts and approves the mask recommended plan as presented by the district leadership team with the following updates and or changes.
And that's only through discussion. I put that in parentheses.
Okay,
So if
through
anybody-
discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't think we, so I'm just gonna say as presented. May I have a motion to approve? Second?
Ms. Sullivan? Ms. Hale?
Yes.
Ms. Angarola? Yes. Ms. Bailiff? Yes. Mr. Helpman? Mr. Candela? Ms. Kwan? Yes.
Okay, so that motion carries. So per the plan, then the district will be moving to masks recommended as of February 28th. And we will follow all of the information contained in the plan, including the potential If you have a comment, please feel free to type that into the chat and we can read that into the meeting for you. Okay, it does not appear that we have any additional comments. Moving on to others, do we have any others this evening? I know we are meeting again already next week, so perhaps we do not. No. Okay, then can we have a motion to adjourn, please?
Ms. Sullivan? Ms. Bailiff? Yes. Ms. Angarola? Yes. Ms. Hale?
Yes.
Mr. Helpman? Mr. Candela? Ms. Kwan? Yes.
Okay, thank you, everyone.